Ushiramiya Kraus. His corpse was found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. The direct cause of death is unknown, but it seems the side of his head was smashed after his death. This is the beginning of everything. Ushiramiya Rudolph. His corpse was found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. His face seems to have been smashed after death. He has a right to lament his ill fortune. Ushiramiya Kyrie. Her corpse was found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. Her face seems to have been smashed after her death. She was chosen by the demon's roulette. That's all there is to it. Ushiramiya Rosa. Her corpse was found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. Her face seems to have been smashed after her death. I'll get to see her again, so I don't feel lonely. Servant Shannon. Her corpse was found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. It seems the side of her head was smashed after her death. Don't worry, everyone will be revived in the Golden Land. Servant Goda. His corpse was found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. His face seems to have been smashed after his death. How unfortunate. Apparently, he was originally supposed to be on duty in the guest house. All that could be heard was the sound of the rain, the voices from the kids' TV program Maria was watching, and the engrossed Maria's cackling voice. In other words, what greeted them as they returned dumbfounded from that horrible, bizarre scene was the voice of Maria as she rolled around laughing at the TV. Those who returned to the room didn't know how to explain to Maria that her mother was dead and were trapped by a suffocating silence. At first, Maria returned their stares with a dubious look. But when she realized they weren't trying to blame her for anything, she ignored them and again immersed herself in the TV program. The children wordlessly sat down heavily on the sofa. Their minds were probably blank from their state of shock. Everyone had already cried and mourned so much, but now they just vaguely sat there, their faces seeming to have lost all emotion. Only Cannon had returned to his usual calm expression. However, that probably didn't mean he'd been able to wipe out the shock. Nothing was reflected in his eyes as he stared into empty space. Hideyoshi kept on fidgeting, and every time he remembered that horrible scene, he started muttering about how he couldn't believe it, how it couldn't have been something from this world, how it must have been the work of demons. Every now and then, his mutterings produced a question directed at Nanjo. But the latter kept repeating in a calm, doctor-like manner that nothing could be understood by only glancing at the scene, and that until the police arrived, they wouldn't learn anything. However, Nanjo only appeared calm next to Hideyoshi, who simply couldn't suppress his agitation and fear. In fact, Nanjo had also received a huge shock, and his face was a deathly pale. Maybe that atmosphere was why she tried to rise to the challenge and take charge. Natsuhi appeared to be unchanged from her normal attitude, and she briskly gave directions.
I will go to see Father. Genji, quickly contact the police.
Certainly.
I wonder if you would allow me to tag along, Natsushi-Nisan. Since Cross-Nisan is now gone, the task of aiding Father has been left to me. It would be improper of me to relax here while relying entirely on you.
Natsuhi was struck speechless by Ava's aggressive move in a situation like this.
She was literally back on her bullshit, actually.
Yeah, I'm
She
like, fuck you.
seemed to be claiming that, with Kraus dead, the one to take responsibility shouldn't be his wife, but herself, the next highly ranked in the family. Or maybe she hadn't been at all happy when Natsuhi took command without reference to her in such an extreme situation. However, even Ava's mind had been blank from shock until a moment ago. She only came to her senses after Natsuhi started giving orders.
Just do as you like.
Natsuhi started walking without saying a word more. Ava followed behind her. As they did, Kumasawa ran into the parlor. She usually wasn't the kind of person to run around, so under normal conditions, most people would have taken her entrance as a sign that something was the matter. But because everyone was so stricken with shock, they hardly even noticed her. Madam!
If you're looking for Natsuhi-Nisan, she went to see Father. She'll probably be back soon. What happened, Kumasawa-san?
You see, in the dining hall, there was blood! The ears of everyone in the parlor twitched. Everyone thought the same thing. I hope I misheard that. Any container can only hold so much, and no one here would be capable of handling yet another tragedy. So they all thought it. I hope I misheard that.
What happened in the dining hall?
When I went to the dining hall, set up for breakfast, The first one to start running was George. His harsh footsteps jogged Hideyoshi and Nanjo to their senses, and they chased after
This
him.
is the fat boys running.
Boys
Battler-
on the patrol.
Battler and the
Everyone in
others
this room
followed.
is pretty thick, minus Scott too. Is probably.
Battler and the others followed. They flew into the dining hall one after another, but they didn't find any change that might have caused Kumasawa to go pale. To those who had viewed that gruesome scene in the storehouse, it was a bit of an anticlimax. However, Kumasawa, who had followed them, pointed it out. There really were some traces of blood remaining on the floor. Compared to that terrible scene, it wasn't very impressive. However, if you come and thought about it, this definitely indicated the loss of a lot of blood.
Oh my god.
Yeah, you have to think about it.
There's another puddle of blood over here. What in the world?
It appears that a great deal of time has passed. It's probably safe to say that they were killed here last night.
It definitely looks that way. We were talking together in the dining hall until late into the night. After that, someone must have forced their way in.
Dad, when did you and Mom slip out of the meeting and go to sleep?
It was a little past midnight. So, we should probably assume it happened after that.
Are you kidding me? Give me a break.
Milady, please stay strong.
After seeing that hell on earth in the storehouse, this is nothing.
Really? Good for you. I feel like my head's gonna explode. This is in the dining hall, right? Every day. This is where I eat. Complain about school, complain about homework, talk to my dad about my grades. That's what this place is to me.
Milady, it wouldn't be good to remain here any longer. Let's return to the parlor.
I agree. Uncle Hideyoshi, I think this room will be really important to the police. Don't you think it'd be bad if we trampled all over it?
Battler proposed this in a slightly firm voice as, along with Cannon, he grabbed the pale and shaking Jessica's shoulders.
Yeah. Everything is just as Battler-san has said. There is nothing more to be gained from remaining in this room.
Nanjo spoke while looking at everyone's pale faces. Even though that horrible scene in the storehouse felt like something not of this world, at least then we'd been able to leave, to cut ourselves off from that place and run away. Everyone had shared in that feeling. However, this dining hall was different. It was in the mansion, the main building on this estate, and as Jessica had said, it should have been one of the most calming places even inside the mansion. It was where all of the relatives had eaten lunch and dinner yesterday. The shock of seeing this place smeared with blood reminded us of that horrible spectacle in the storehouse, and forced us to accept that we hadn't really been able to run away from the scene of that tragedy.
I agree too. The culprit might have left traces in this room. Amateurs like us shouldn't stir the place up. Let's leave quickly. Quickly, quickly!
Hideyoshi also understood the meaning of what Battler had said, and pushed everyone to hurry out of the dining hall. The way we were then, looking at that blood, any longer would have been too harsh. Nobody went against his words. Everyone raced each other out of the dining hall. It was almost as though the last person in the room would be trapped in there all alone. Once in the hallway, we lent a hand to Kumasawa.
Battler?
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Once in the hallway, we lent a hand to Kumasawa, who was still trembling and leaning against the wall, and we all headed back to the parlor together. Then Genji returned. Oh, Genji-san. Were you able to contact the police?
As to that, I'm afraid I must apologize. I don't know if it was a failure of the radio or something else that caused it, but... What? What the? So you couldn't contact the police? Both the phone and the radio failed? My apologies. A boat will be arriving on Monday morning, and I believe we will be able to borrow their communications equipment. Isn't there a boat on this island? Can't we just take a little trip out to the Nishima Police Department?
Hideyoshi-san, that would be impossible with this weather. At the very least, we can't do anything until the typhoon passes us by.
Kurosawa's boat is being repaired and is not on the island. Therefore, we must wait for the boat coming on Monday. How could this happen? 6 people are dead! The phones and radios aren't working and there's no boat! So until the typhoon passes and the boat comes, in other words, until tomorrow morning, we're gonna be stuck here on this island, unable to contact the police, aren't we? Which means that not just us, but the criminal who killed everyone is also confined to this island.
That certainly follows.
Go ahead.
He's just dancing.
What the fuck are you doing?
Continue, George.
Oh my god! Your reflection, I can fucking see it. The culprit who killed everyone is still here on this island. So the bastard who killed Dad and the others must still be hiding somewhere. Unable to escape. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it! Oh, I probably keep the mic.
Yeah. Oh, this so.
I'll catch that bastard. No way I'll hand him over to the police.
I think if you think you're gonna peek the mic, just like step back a bit.
Yeah,
I think.
I didn't even know I was
Finish
gonna
up.
go that high.
That's
I
fair,
got really
yeah.
into it.
Yeah, there's still.
There's still war.
I'll slice him to bits myself. Ah!
Mm.
Maria. Oh, I guess that's you. So.
Maria had finally realized that something odd was happening in the parlor. Rather than noticing something odd, it was probably better to say she felt unhappy and neglected, since everyone was getting so excited about something only she didn't know about. Ooh! Jessica One-chan, did someone die?
Hello?
The way she spoke was completely calm. Just as though she was talking about someone who had appeared in a television drama, as though it was someone else's problem.
What the?
Jessica probably didn't like that.
What the fuck?
As though trying to say,
Can't you tell just by looking at me? Overwhelmed with grief?
she flared up at Maria.
They all died. Everyone. Battler's parents, and my dad and Battler's parents, Goda-san and Shannon, even your mother too. Stop it, Jessica-chan. You aren't the only one who's sad.
Maria-san, I know this will come as a shock, but please listen. Your mother has died. Mama died? Ooh? Yeah, someone killed her. I know it's sad, but stay strong. How many people died?
6 people. 6 people. Damn it. How could someone do something that cruel? There's a limit to how cruel you can be if you're a human. I don't know who it is, but the culprit isn't human. There's no way their blood is red.
It's the red truth.
Did they go in the dark?
The George?
I mean, some fish have blue
Ooh.
blood. Because they're not
The,
exposed to as much
the culprit isn't human. It's just the chosen by the...
Nani?
Mm-hmm.
Can we just put static
Huh?
in there?
Hey, Maria, did you say something just now? Maria had just said something.
Did she?
But since the words were so remotely separated from the flow and context of the conversation, I couldn't understand them for a second.
That's how that works, man. Someone says some words that is unrelated, they just like.
I might be like that sometimes. When I tried to ask her to repeat it
Cantaloupe.
again, I was shocked by the sudden sound of Aunt Natsu's loud voice coming from the entrance to the parlor. It looked like Aunt Natsu and Aunt Ava had returned from their trip to see Grandfather. You can't contact them, even with the radio. If we can't use it at a time like this, why do we even have an emergency radio?
My apologies. It was supposed to have a maintenance inspection every year.
Wait, don't you have one of those boat signaling devices that make a flashing light? Couldn't you use that to contact the next island?
We do not have such equipment. My sincere apologies.
Just then, Kumasawa-san arrived, pushing a cart loaded with breakfast. Since there was no way we'd be able to eat in the dining hall, Hideyoshi had ordered her to take it to the parlor. Why are we eating breakfast here?
Natsuhi-san, I'll tell you later. More importantly, Ava, how is father?
Judging by the fact that he is not with you, it seems he will not leave his room, even for a situation like this.
He wasn't there. The room was empty.
Oh, fuck. Do we wanna...
What the?
I'll leave it for now.
Where could he have gone at a time like this?
Do you mean to say the master has left his study?
Fucking neat.
That is correct.
He's a neat. That's funny.
I was surprised myself. I wonder when he left his room. Do any of you have an idea? Natsuhi looked at Genji and Kanon as she said this. Maybe she was trying to ask whether the servants who served directly under the one-winged eagle knew of a place he might go. However, it was probably the other way around. Their faces made it clear that those who knew Kinzo best realized even more than the rest how impossible it was for him to leave his room.
Even we have no idea.
As you all know, within that study, the master had everything from a place to sleep to a bathroom. I couldn't imagine him leaving that room except for a significant reason. In that case, what? Isn't it natural to assume that one of those significant reasons came up?
We still cannot be certain that that's the case. Anyway, he is a fickle person, so it's possible he went for a walk by himself, unaware of the current situation. If that is the case, then we must act in all haste to tell him what has happened and ask for instructions.
That's right. Although, I don't want to think about it. It's possible something has happened to him, isn't it?
I'd rather not even consider such a sinister possibility. No one had seen Kinzo since the discovery of those 6 terrible corpses. On top of that, the phones were broken, the radio wouldn't reach anyone, and there was no way to contact the police. Apparently, the typhoon would leave tomorrow and a boat would come. But until then, no one could rely on anyone outside the island, nor could they escape the island. The tragedy had hit everyone so abruptly that they lost all their composure. Everyone felt a heavy silence. Everyone was impatient. Even though they needed to do something, they couldn't think of anything. So, some of them held their heads in their arms, and while others got irritated. Right now, no one could explain what was occurring on this island, Rokenjima.
That the chapter?
No. Shit. This is gonna go on for a while. After that, we ate the breakfast Kumasawa-san had made, which felt dry and tasteless.
Oof.
Of course, this was right after something like that had happened. No one felt particularly hungry. However, we understood logically that not eating would weaken our bodies. It would also be rude to Kumasawa-san, who had made the breakfast. Kumasawa-san had taken some unusual Western vegetables, one that Goto-san had probably ordered for his ultra-elaborate meals, and cooked them in a Japanese style, which made them turn an unpleasant color. As to what Goto-san had been planning to cook with those ingredients, right then, I couldn't even imagine it. If I did think about it, I'd be reminded of the way Goto-san died, and the sour taste would fill the inside of my mouth.
Oh yeah, he died.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Oh yeah, that nerd.
Everyone pretended to eat for the time being, but of course, no one made much progress. Then we began pooling our knowledge of the current situation. First off, 6 people, which included Uncle Kraus, I don't know why I was just saying Ushiromiya, my dad, Kirie-san, Aunt Rosa, Goto-san, and Shannon-chan, had been found in the Rose Garden storehouse as brutally mutilated corpses. And yet, we still couldn't contact the police, since both the phones and the radio were unusable. So, until the typhoon passed, there was nothing we could do. Furthermore, Grandfather, who we might have hoped would be able to show a little leadership in this kind of situation, had disappeared some time ago. Goto-san hadn't made breakfast, so Grandfather's stomach must have been empty. And if he had just been taking a casual walk, we should have been hear from him whining about how hungry he was by now. And despite that, he hadn't appeared. There was more than a small chance that he'd been caught up in this crime. According to my aunts, on their way back from Kinzo's study, they'd searched for him, calling out on every floor, but were unable to find him. Considering the timing of it all, it's only reasonable to assume that this disappearance had something to do with the crime. We figured Dad and the rest were probably killed in the dining hall, and then painstakingly moved to the storehouse. So maybe Grandfather had already been killed, and dragged to some strange place, which we simply haven't discovered yet. No one actually said it out loud, but this theory seemed extremely convincing. We will go check that all the windows and doors are locked. We must also conduct a thorough search for Father. The children must remain in this room. Heiba-san and Hideyoshi-san, I'm sorry, but please try to stay here with the children. I'd like to ask you the same, Dr. Nanjo. I understand. I will wait here. I just had a bit of Nazi in that, Nanjo.
Yep.
On Nazi, he followed the servants,
Nanjohi.
Genji-san,
That's bad
Kumasawa-san, and Kamin-kun out of the parlor. Don't speak to me, Hannah. All that was left was Aunt Eva, Uncle Hideyoshi, Dr. Nanjo, and the 4 of us children, a total of 7 people.
Let's all stick together and maybe watch some television while we wait. Though I doubt we'll find anything good in the middle of a day on a Sunday.
Uncle Hideyoshi started acting cheerfully, trying to brighten up this gloomy atmosphere. Ooh! Good show, watch it, watch it! Ooh, ooh!
Oh, really? Is it Naruto? You want to watch TV, Maria-chan?
Maria watches Naruto.
No, she's watching
Confirmed.
Dragon Ball. This is the 80s.
Oh, true.
She's watching some witch shit, honestly.
Yeah, she is.
Then
Maria
go
was
watch
the-
it with your uncle.
Maria was the only one who joined in. Even though Maria had been told of her mother's death, she didn't show the slight flicker in her emotions. Was it really normal for a 9-year-old girl like Maria to act so much like a very young child? Everyone else's mood failed to improve, and they each sank absent-mindedly into their sofas. Aniki, can I ask you something?
What is it?
Just now, in the storehouse, you said something about Shannon-chan in a ring. Did you give that to her? George Aniki didn't answer, but he hung his head and closed both his eyes. That was a little fucking insensitive, actually. There could be no clearer response.
Hey, remember that dead girl that you liked? Did she have a ring on that finger that you probably gave to her?
Yeah,
Did
actually.
you propose to that dead chick with the big titties?
Oh, see, that makes sense. Oh.
Big thing.
See, that's what it got. Ah.
It's a little bit of a big thing. Go ahead.
Quit it, Badler. Figure it out yourself.
You're right. I shouldn't have asked.
You fucking idiot.
Dummy.
Dumbass Badler. That's right. It was me. Last night I proposed to her. That was when I gave her the ring. I told her that tomorrow she should put it on, whatever finger she wanted as her answer. Guess it was a pretty pretentious thing to say.
A little bit, yeah, kind of.
Slightly.
And that ring had been on the ring finger of Shannon-chan's left hand.
That ring's name? Albert Einstein.
God damn it! Way to ruin the moment.
I'm sorry.
Well, several years ago, Shannon came to me asking for advice about you, George Nissan. I wonder what she could have said.
Jessica.
Shannon always was really bad at lying. It was obvious pretty quickly that she was the one, that you were the one she was talking about.
Oh, Shannon's so cute.
She asked whether it'd be okay for her to get close to someone, even though she was only a servant. Now she's dead.
Yeah.
She asked about what kind of things boys like, what kind of clothes she should wear to make them happy.
Oh.
Lots of stuff like that.
Shannon's got big titties.
Yeah. Well, I guess you could say I felt envious hearing her say that.
I felt envious in her big titties.
I mean,
Fucking hell.
they have their benefits and their drawbacks.
I mean, Jessica does have some songs too.
Is that me?
According to Badler, she has some zoners.
So then she was given an engagement ring, and it all ended right there?
Jessica.
That's probably George.
Is it?
No,
It
I
seems
don't
like
think-
I don't think George would say. Oop. Yeah, it's Jessica.
Different people value different things differently. But being proposed to by a man, well, it came to the high point of your life. So I'm sure last night, I'm sure Shannon was happy. From the bottom of her heart. Happier than she's ever been since that day of her life, of her birth.
That would actually be so pretentious if George was the one saying that.
Yeah.
Oh my
Fucking
god.
hell.
I mean, he is looking.
You'd be so.
I'm assuming that's George, so ...
Yeah.
George Anarchy sighed deeply, without raising his head. Maybe tears had risen to his eyes. Boy's crying.
Maybe. Fine, B.
Sad boy.
I wonder. It seems Shannon was on duty in the guest house last night. But because she was too embarrassed to go back to the guest house with me, she went over to the mansion. Think about how Shannon must have felt when you received an engagement ring, and no matter how much warning you've been given beforehand, it's perfectly normal to get so excited that your mind goes blank. She must have been incredibly embarrassed.
George.
And then Shannon went to the mansion, even though she hadn't been assigned there. Helped Goda-san with his work. Got caught up in the crime. If only I hadn't given her that ring. Only that day.
I'm sorry.
In that place, Shannon wouldn't have... Sayo wouldn't have been caught up in that crime.
Jesus. Aniki, that's the one place where you're wrong. It's definitely wrong. So don't cry anymore. Keeps crying. Fuck, George. Get off me.
Battler-kun... Fuck. Battler-kun? Let's leave him be.
After Aneva said that, I stopped talking to him. Fuck off. Misplaced words of comfort might actually do
I'm
more
not
harm
talking to
than
that
good.
guy anymore.
Jessica sat down next to Aniki and put an arm around him. Maybe only Jessica, who had known about Aniki and Shannon's love since the beginning, and who had even discussed their relationship with Shannon, could comfort Aniki now.
Is that the first time Iva's ever, like, smiled like that? And not, like, in, like, kind of, like, go fuck yourself kind of way?
Might
Probably
be.
at the airport.
Probably.
True.
I went over to Aneva and sat down opposite in the sofa.
Battler-kun, you really are strong. It looks like you've been you've kept a good hold on yourself.
Well, look. The depth of the love becomes the depth of the wound, right? After all, it's not like how that old bastard died has anything to do with me.
Fuck.
I feel bad about Kyrie-san, but, well, she wasn't actually my parent.
My. If that's so, you certainly were crying a lot back then.
Well, I did think at least that much crying was due as gratitude to the parent who raised me.
Just got that, born with that,
The gene, you know.
The speed of that changeover and that dry tone must have come from Rudolph. That kid would always get violently happy, sad, and angry. But he'd always regain his cool immediately afterwards.
It's nothing like that. I haven't really been able to get over the shock yet. I think the only difference between me and everyone else is the kind of emotions it stirred in me.
What do you mean?
He has a boner.
I've been acting...
Oh, no! He's got a guru fetish!
I've been acting much calmer than George, Anarchy, and Jessica. That wasn't because my sadness was any less intense, or because I'd already recovered. My sadness was simply getting replaced gradually with a different emotion. Rather than sad, I'd say I'm more pissed off. What bastard did this, and where? It's kind of been eating at me, the fact I didn't get a chance to smack him upside the face.
Just to smack him a little, you know?
That was what I really wanted to do. I couldn't forgive myself if I just sat there, overwhelmed with sadness and hugging my knees. Since the time Dad and the others were killed, this island has been covered by the typhoon, which means that bastard responsible for all this is still somewhere on this island.
Yes, that would seem to be the case. I wonder if they're hiding somewhere in that dark forest even now.
I felt like I'd had a very similar conversation with Kyrie-san the night before. That's right. After the letter from the person claiming to be Beatrice appeared at the dining table last night, we talked about whether or not a 19th person actually exists. Aneva, do you think this murder has anything to do with the letter from Beatrice last night?
Ah, that one. Well, I wonder.
All of the siblings agreed that the mysterious letter was sent to further complicate the problems of father's inheritance. As to whether that and the case this morning are related, it's impossible to tell at this stage.
Was that letter really given to Maria by some witch called Beatrice?
How could it be? All of it was a farce, devised by father, wasn't it? He made Shannon-chan or someone wearing that dress from the portrait and tricked Maria-chan, right? Isn't that just the kind of overly intricate prank father would pull? Thank you.
Last night, I talked with Kyrie-san about whether Beatrice actually exists. And Kyrie-san also said that Beatrice was probably one of us 18.
Isn't that obvious? There's no one else on this island besides us, right? Then there must be someone amongst us who pretended to be Beatrice.
There's no one else but us on this island, you think?
Obviously, right? Are you saying there could be someone else here other than us? No one is on this island except for us. There are only 18 people. So the one pretending to be Beatrice has to be one of those 18.
Kyrie-san denied the existence of a 19th person by spinning the chessboard around. Even though Aunt Ava hadn't constructed an argument that complicated, her opinion at least was the same. Except, if that's the case, our situation starts to look very ugly. At the time of Beatrice's letter, the whole thing could be passed off as a prank set up by someone or another. However, if we're assuming there's no 19th person, we can't ignore this anymore. In other words, if there's no 19th person, then the culprit who killed Dad and the others is also not one of the 18, right? So in other words, the person who killed them is one of the people inside this very mansion right now. Aunt Ava smiled meaningfully. What does that mean?
What does it mean?
It looked
Very
like,
meaningful.
It looked like she thought this conclusion should have been obvious from the very beginning. Damn, Ava, I guess you're smart.
Like this.
Jesus.
The culprit carried the bodies of those 6 into the storehouse. But even that was an impressive feat, don't you think? The shutters always closed and locked, right? In other words, in order to carry them into the storehouse, the culprit would need to unlock the shutters. Understand?
Is it possible the shutter was left open by a mistake that day?
The servant said it's always kept locked. In other words, unless the culprit took the key from the servant's room, there's no way that they could have opened the storehouse.
I wonder if the key in the servant room was the only one.
Genji-san said that was the case, which means the culprit knew where that single key was kept and took it. Just now, I watched when Kanen-kun returned the key to the servant room. The wall was packed with keys, and I don't think a novice would know where or what those keys went to. The culprit was miraculously able to find a storehouse key amongst all of those. Furthermore, even though that key didn't have a tag or anything sticking to it, they knew it was the key to the storehouse behind the rose garden. And that means they also knew where the storehouse was. I'll say it very clearly. The culprit knew the inside of the servant's room well.
Her argument was extremely plain and clear. If the bodies had been found thrown somewhere in the bushes of the rose garden, there wouldn't have been much to go on. However, if there was only one key to the storehouse in the servant room, and it was stored with such a large group of keys, a novice would not be able to tell them apart. This means the culprit was someone who went into the servant room a lot and was familiar with the locations of the keys. The family members didn't normally go into the servant room, which means that one of the servants is the culprit.
I'm sorry, but even I can't tell you any more than that. However, I'll tell you one thing.
What's that?
It's reasonable to think that the culprits, are multiple in number and fairly well armed. They'd have to be, wouldn't they?
They had to assault the 4 in the dining hall and kill them. Drag a total of 6 bodies all the way to the storehouse, beyond the rose garden, and arrange for that disgusting makeup and the graffiti on the shirt. There's no way that a single culprit could carry out all of that on their own, right?
It made sense. It probably would have been possible for a single person with long enough time, but it would also take incredibly long. It was probably safe to assume that a significant number of people were involved.
Thinking intensifies.
Actually, this is what this whole chapter is going to be. So what you're saying is that maybe all the servants were in cahoots.
Please, keep it quiet, okay? It wouldn't be right to voice mere speculations like this. And if it really is true, what would you do next? They might not let us leave here alive. This is an opponent who had no trouble killing Nissan and the 3 others. Right now, the only ones I can count on to fight with me are the 3 in my family, and maybe you. Which comes to a total of 4 people, right? There's no better off than they were last night. In short, it'd be easier for the culprits to massacre the rest of us.
I've been playing detective with Aunt Ava, trying to expose the person who killed Dad and the rest of the police before that. The rest killed Dad and the rest of the police.
The police are just there.
Kill all of them.
Rudolph was a cop!
All of them.
Rudolph's a cop!
All the police in the world.
All the
And
police
Rudolph's
in
a
the-
cop.
All the cops in the world. Just thanks, Beatrice.
Rudolph says the flavor of the game.
I've been playing detective with Aunt Ava, trying to expose the person who had killed Dad and the rest before the police did. If only I could cleverly penetrate the culprit's identity and stick the proof in their face.
Penetrate it.
I'd been
Stick it in
so
their
sure
face.
there. I'd been so sure that, just like in one of those detective movies, the culprit would then give up and surrender. However, the culprit would only surrender if there was no way for them to fight back. The culprits behind the crime on this island were far from helpless, and might even be able to massacre all of the remaining people here. And on top of that, the island was like a giant closed room, cut off from the outside world by the typhoon. So they had a full day, until tomorrow, to kill, scheme, and camouflage themselves. In short, it wasn't a safe atmosphere where we could get very far by playing detective. To the contrary, we were at a stage where we had to be scared stiff, since playing detective might displease the culprits, and cause them to commit another mass murder.
Well, it is just a possibility, right? But I can't bring myself to trust the servants yet. And that doesn't mean I only suspect them. Don't you think there might be some mastermind behind all this?
A mastermind?
Maria?
Why do you say that?
It's just a feeling. Think about what the word servant literally means. It means someone who serves as someone else's arms and legs, right?
Furniture. Sure, it's got legs.
Yeah.
Chair's got arms too.
Yeah. She's got arms and legs.
It was a bunch of Ushiromiya family members who got killed. So, naturally, there must be someone involved who stands to gain from that result.
Her?
This was also plain and clear. The Yoshiromiya family had been right in the middle of discussions about how to distribute the inheritance when grandfather died. If this case followed the standard form of any classic mystery novel, the crime was definitely caused by someone with ties to the Ushiromiya family and who was involved in the inheritance problem. Aunt Eva had probably read a few books in that genre herself. Her argument may have had a few blind assumptions in it, but it was a standard conclusion that anyone might have reached. I think most people would end up suspecting the servants, even if they used different reasoning to get there. Especially the story about the key to the shutter. That made it very easy to suspect one of the servants was involved. And that's why I don't like it.
What do you mean you don't like it?
Nah, just talking to myself. I tried to dodge your question by joking, but I couldn't erase the sense of unease welling up inside me. After all, her conclusion was such an easy one to reach. A conclusion that anyone could reach. And I just couldn't be satisfied with that. If I tried spinning the chessboard around, like I'd learned from Kirie-san, this was exactly why a servant couldn't possibly be the culprit.
Do not.
If the servants really were the culprits, they wouldn't hide the bodies in a place connected to themselves. Why on earth would they use the Rose Garden shed if they were the only ones in charge of the key that could unlock it? the police would probably immediately pursue whoever had been in control of the key. It was even possible that some other facts might come to light as a result. The more we think of the servants as the culprits, the less reason they had to carry the bodies into the storehouse. What if they knew that we'd think that, and put the corpses in the storehouse for that very reason? No, that's completely impossible. When the police come and inspect the scene of the crime, they'll probably be able to uncover many things. No matter how carefully the culprit carried out the murder, some traces will definitely be found. In other words, they had everything to lose and nothing to gain. If you think about it this way and look at this murder game from the culprit's side, it's hard to imagine why they'd want to call attention to the corpses. Once the corpses were found, it could result in someone sending a report to the police, or it might make the remaining people more cautious, or it might make the survivors start to search for the culprit. None of these things would make life any easier for the culprit. It's just like the words of the main character's mother in a novel I read recently called Higurashi no Naku Koroni.
Fuck off.
Every story needs to
If I
have...
Google that and it's an anime, I'm gonna lose my dick.
That's also part of the series.
It's the
Higurashi
prequel.
when they cry.
Oh my fucking god, you're kidding me?
Every story
Yeah,
needs
what
to
is
have a
Kana's
beginning,
crime?
a middle, and an end. Eliminating that beginning is essential for the
Product
perfect
placement.
crime.
I cannot fucking believe that they actually did
This is the whack Donald's of Umineko.
It's the Disneyland.
Oh my god.
Right now, we don't know where grandfather
Disneyland.
is.
I hate that.
We don't know if he's already become a victim or if he's one of the culprits. But this state of confusion must be beneficial to the killer. The culprit has absolutely nothing to gain by showing us the bodies in such an obvious way and making us all realize that there's been a murder. In fact, this is the perfect place to spin the chessboard around. In other words, showing us the corpses in such a flashy way must have been the culprit's goal in and of itself. So at the very least, to the culprit, the appearance of the 6 corpses meant more than the deaths themselves. In other words, the culprit wanted this murder on display. To whom? To us. This is a message. The culprit is trying to shove something in our faces. I don't know what it is. At this point, this vulgar mass murder isn't making me feel anything except a malice directed towards all of us. Malice towards all of us, is it? Each one of the survivors has some kind of connection to one of the 6 victims. Uncle Krause's death brought Jessica the grief of losing a family member. The deaths of Cad and Kirie-san brought me sorrow, while Aunt Rosa's death brought Maria sorrow. I mean, like, did it?
Did it.
Goda-san's death probably shocked his fellow servants. And Shannon-chan's death brought grief both to George Aniki, who had proposed to her, and Kanin-kun, who had loved her like an older
Cannon's
sister.
like Dota. I hate that guy.
Yeah, actually.
Dota? Thank fucking god.
Everyone now on
Who's this man so I can shake his hand?
Everyone now on this island has received an equal amount of sadness. Aunt Ava was sure that the servants were in cahoots. But then, how could you explain the deaths of Goda and Shannon-chan? At any rate, by this argument, the grief caused by the 6 hit everyone but Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi. Even Aunt Ava, who had directed suspicion at the servants and acted though she herself was beyond suspicion, could not be ruled out as a suspect. In the first place, she was able to argue that the servants were suspicious by focusing on the shutter's key. But if you look at it from a perspective of motive and who would gain, Aunt Ava's name rises to the top of the list.
Ava voice. I committed a murder. I know what you're thinking, Battler-kun.
Huh? Oh no, please don't tell anybody about how my head's so full of obscene stuff.
Oh, not about murder. He does have a girder fetish. I'm the one who's going to gain the most from these murders. Since I'm going to be suspected anyway, I might as well get it out in the open.
I tried to dodge the issue by joking around, but apparently it didn't work.
Again.
The inheritance will be divided into as many parts as there are siblings. But right now, I'm the only one in the 4 left. All the assets of the Ushiromiya family will become mine. Yeah.
If Uncle Hideyoshi heard you, he'd say, "Could you give it a rest? It's not funny."
I'm sorry. I was just fooling around. Since I'm going to be suspected anyway, no matter how much I try to smooth it over. That's why, from my point of view, the murder might have been designed to cast suspicion on me. Unfortunately, my alibi of last night is weak.
Could you tell me a bit more about last night?
As you know, the discussion between the siblings of how to slice up and eat the inheritance continued until late in the night.
Why you gotta say it like that?
But I don't know how late it lasted.
Guzzle it down.
Oh my God, Scott. Guzzle.
Please.
Blah.
You avoided.
I hate the word guzzle.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
bad.
it. It's a great word.
God, I'd rather have a moist day than a guzzling day.
It doesn't mean anything.
I know. Continue.
My husband and I had woken up earlier than morning.
Personally,
We were so sleepy that a little past midnight, they let us go. We then returned to the guest house and rested there.
Can anyone other than Uncle Hideyoshi prove that? No, wait. It's not like I suspect you or anything, okay?
Oh, are you sure about that? I don't know if it counts as proof. But when we returned to the guest house, we were greeted by Genji-san, who asked if we needed a towel. I think that should be enough to prove we returned to the guest house a little after midnight. Though, if my theory was correct, the servants would be all in cahoots, and that wouldn't actually make for much of an alibi.
Hey, you've got a point there. Guess that means I'm playing detective with the real culprit right now, huh?
However, let me say this for my honor's sake. If I was after the inheritance, I'd never commit such a bizarre set of murders. After all, if I just wanted to make them forfeit their rights to the inheritance, it wouldn't matter to me how they died. It'd be much smarter of me to try and make their deaths look like an accident. Especially if you're assuming I laid out some careful planning that involved even the servants.
Got a point there. If you're killing someone for personal gain, you definitely shouldn't make it look like a murder.
Big thing.
Exactly. That's why I'm in such a blue mood. The police will probably treat me like the mastermind and investigate all kinds of things. Not fun at all.
Aneva shrugged with a bitter smile. It was just as easy to suspect Aneva as it was to suspect the servants. So if we spin the chessboard around, does that make it impossible for her to be the culprit, suspicious as she is? However, that sort of argument always works. Then motive can never help us in any way. No, that can't be right. Knowing the motive must give us powerful clues towards knowing the culprit. That's why murderers from all time periods disguise crimes in complicated ways, cleverly preventing their motives from being discovered. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Every time I spin the chessboard around, it keeps flipping from front to back and back to front. Are my thoughts bringing me closer to the truth? Or are they... Aneva didn't want to talk any more than that, so I folded my arms and headed to the window to cool my head a little. As I looked over to the parlor, I saw George Anarchy and the others gathered, talking. It looked like they'd been talking about the magic circle that had been painted onto the shutter. Can you?
Yeah.
As Uncle Hideyoshi thought back to that time, he started drawing the shape in the margins of Maria's notebook. I see. Since Maria was the second only to grandfather in knowledge of the occult, she might understand what it meant.
I think it was probably something like that.
Yeah, just like that.
There was a mark that looked like a variation of a cross. And then surrounding the circle, all around the perimeter, were these closely packed strange letters on all four sides of the cross. And in the four corners, there was something written. It didn't look like the alphabet or something like that. It was what they call ancient characters.
And around the top of the circumference, there was a small mark. 5 small circles arranged in a plus sign, and straight lines connecting them.
Ah, yeah. There definitely was something like that drawn there. Yep, there's no mistaking that shape. I don't understand the thin characters, but the arrangement was nearly the same.
Everyone was staring down at the shape, so I stared down at it too. From what I'd heard, this had been painted on the shutter to the storehouse with some material that looked like blood. I see. This sure is unsettling.
Grandfather's probably the only one who'd want to draw something that weird. Seriously, where did he go? I want to grab him and ask him what the hell this is supposed to mean.
Jessica's voice contained impatience and anger. She hadn't gone so far as to say grandfather was the culprit, but she seemed sure that grandfather knew something about the culprit's background. Of course, if you were searching for a link connecting the Yoshiromiya family to the occult, 10 out of 10 people would think of grandfather. 9 out of 10 doctors. Also, to a person who knew nothing of the occult, this strange mark would have no meaning, which meant that this might have been something addressed to grandfather. That's right. And the reason the crime was shown to the survivors was so they'd find this. In that case, where had grandfather, the essential recipient of this message, disappeared off to?
Does this shape ring any bells?
Ooh. Maria looked at the shape with a serious face. Maybe she was enthusiastic because this was her area of expertise. However, her appearance was that of someone separated from the events at hand, as though this thing hadn't been drawn on the shutter or closed around her mother's corpse.
My first impressions was that the design resembled a German cross.
Ah. It certainly does have that kind of design. Does that mean that has something to do with Germany?
The Nazis. The German cross was originally a crest from the religious order of knights and was supposed to protect pilgrims traveling to sacred places. That was it weirdly.
So, in other words, this magic circle might have some religious meaning? Oh, fuck.
What?
This is starting to sound like gibberish.
When I looked over at all of them, preparing to jump into the discussion, something shocked me. Maria was smiling, an eerie and incomprehensible expression on her face. It was almost as if she was making fun of everyone's ignorance. It was an expression I wouldn't have dreamed to find on Maria's face. And she laughed. That eerie, jarring laugh was something I didn't want to believe was possible, even though I was looking at it right in front of my eyes. You people aren't even close. Can you tell just by looking? While everyone was busy being scared out of their wits, Maria kept on cackling happily by herself. After a while, that laugh was suddenly and abruptly cut off, but her expression still looked like it belonged to someone completely different from Maria. This is the 7th magic circle of the sun, and the characters are written in Hebrew. Give it here.
Sure.
Maria stole the writing materials from the stunned Hideyoshi's hand. She then started drawing another magic circle with a rustle right next to the one Hideyoshi had drawn. See? It looks sort of like this, right? Yes! It was...
Maria, incredible! You really do know a lot.
Jessica tried to smooth things over by praising Maria. Maybe she wanted to confirm that this was still the Maria we all knew so well.
That smug-ass look.
But Maria didn't answer her in any way in particular. Maria began swiftly writing unfamiliar characters in the corner of the shape. When Uncle Hideyoshi and the Dr. Nanjo saw them, their eyes immediately began to open wide. Written on the top and the bottom left and the right hand are the names of the angels who preside over wind, fire, earth, and water. Chasan, Arol, Forkal, and Taliahad. And in the 4 corners of the names are the 4 great kings.
Probably butchered those pronunciations.
Yeah, absolutely. Ariel, Seraph, Tharshish, and Cherub. Is this what you saw? Even if they hadn't been able to correctly write what they'd seen, when they were once again shown something identical, it wasn't difficult for them to realize the two were the same. When Maria asked them whether it matched, Uncle Hideyoshi and Dr. Nanjo nodded over and over again.
There's no mistake. That's it. I'm sure there were characters that look like that. How were you able to write something like that?
There were also characters written around the circumference. I know. Like this, right? Maria quickly began to surround the circumference with more Hebrew writing. It's from the Psalms of the Old Testament, the 16th and 17th verses of the 116th Psalm. You must have at least read the Bible, right?
Like, I haven't read the
Maria,
Bible.
you're Jewish?
Oy vey.
Nah, she's just fucking smart.
She just knows Hebrew.
Yeah, actually. Acting as though knowing this was only common sense, Maria laughed. For a while, everyone, including me, was at a loss for words. A little later, George Aniki returned to his senses and slowly managed to speak.
That's incredible. I'm surprised. So what meaning does this magic circle have?
It's a magic circle to borrow the power of the sun. He who wears it as a talisman drawn in gold shall be able to break free from the bonds of any prison and receive the power to gain freedom.
To break freedom from bonds? And gain freedom? It sounds deep.
The word's bonds is not limited to its interpretation to some kind of physical object. Therefore, it does not only hold meaning for the people locked up in actual jail. It can also refer to the release of mental bonds such as ties of obligation and inescapable fate. Ties of obligation and inescapable fate, you say? That's also pretty deep.
But I really don't understand. What does this have to do with those 6 bodies? Far from being released, they were killed and stuffed in a storehouse, weren't they?
It's not like the magic circle was drawn for their sakes. The 6 of them were there for the sake of the magic circle. It is truly pitiable.
What does it mean? What in the world do you mean when you say that the 6 of them were there for the sake of the magic circle?
Maria lifted up her pointer finger and waggled it as if she were making fun of us. That's written around the circumference. Can't you read it? Psalms chapter 116, verses 16 and 17. I'll read it for you. The Lord has freed me from my chains. I will offer to you the sacrifices of thanksgiving and will call upon the name of the Lord.
Yeah, kind of good turkey.
See?
Some cranberries. See, you say, I got no idea what you're talking about.
You're saying they're human sacrifices. If Maria had just read aloud was a vital part of the magic circle, then it was saying that sacrifices had to be offered in order for this magic circle to be effective.
The 6 chosen by the king?
So human sacrifices had been offered inside the storehouse where the magic circle had been drawn. A heartbeat later, everyone else seemed to reach the same conclusion. Some people were shocked, and others spat out that this was insane as they punched their knees. This was starting to get incredibly disturbing, and we couldn't accept it or understand it. I don't care what kind of magic circle or curses other people believe in. I won't pick a fight with them. But did they really kill Dad and the rest as sacrifices for crap like that? I just couldn't stand that feeling. Compared to this, I preferred it when it was still disgusted by the theory about the fight over the inheritance. As I started getting pissed off with a feeling between anger and sadness, I broke from the circle everyone was in and returned once again to the window. Something had gone insane since yesterday. There was that letter from the witch, Beatrice, that Maria read aloud at last night's dinner. Ever since that point, it feels like like this whole mansion, this whole island have been getting more and more firmly locked in some kind of insane, bizarre world. That's right. When I think back on it, that letter was an invitation from the witch. The ruler of the nighttime island had invited us inhabitants of the day into another world. The phone and the radio had been interrupted and the island was shut off by a typhoon, so you really could call this place another world cut off from the real one by now. Yeah, as this island is now, it's perfectly normal for a witch to send us letters and for human sacrifices to be offered up for the sake of magic circles. So what will happen next? Will some weird people wearing goat masks start doing the Bond Festival dance or something? Ugh, it's hopeless. It's hopeless. I don't get it. The inside of my head's all screwed up. I don't even know what to think. Anger, sadness, the opposing emotions all swirled up together as they started to suck me in. Damn, suck. Unable to resist, I could do nothing but cover my eyes with my hands and trust my mind and body as I started getting sucked in. As I started losing heart, I began to recall a memory from when I was small.
Can't neglect the heart, bro. That's why I went to the doctor.
It was from when I was very young. I had unfortunately seen a scary occult movie on TV, and for a while, I hadn't even been able to go to the bathroom by myself.
Oof.
The old bastard gave an exaggerated laugh and said this.
Oh, hey. Hey, Battler. Why do you think they go to all the trouble to make movies like this about demons and the occult and such? It's because they don't exist. Something that ridiculous can be found anywhere on the planet. Because they don't exist, people want to see them and go to a lot of effort making them. That's why those occult movies just make me laugh. If I were forced to choose, I'd say, rather than demons and monsters, this year's earnings call and angry wives are 100 million times scarier. I'll go further, okay? From my point of view, getting scared is a recreational emotion. Something for people who've got room to relax, both in their hearts and their lifestyles. They've had so much free time, they didn't know what to do with it. So in order to entertain their mind with unusual emotions, people started creating a culture with demons and the occult and stuff.
Bye, Rudolph.
Big fucking think.
Big think. Seriously, why have we been acting so goddamn thick-headed?
Yeah.
I added the god there. I was totally taken in. Don't try and mess with me. This is the human world. I don't give a damn about witches, demons, magic, circles, and sacrifices. The human who killed Dad and everyone else is still on this island. That's all there is to it, right? The next person who started speaking to my mind was Kirie-san.
You see, in both chess and shogi, when you reach the very, very last stage of the game and get closer and closer to cornering your opponent, the number of optimal moves you could possibly make gets smaller and smaller. Therefore, if you're backing against someone against the wall, or if someone's doing the same to you, both players' moves become infinitely easier to read. In other words, when you're completely cornered and you think you have no moves left, that is the moment when it's easiest to read your opponent. However, when a person is forced into a defensive position, they can't help but lose their ability to think clearly, so they aren't able to get their minds around their opponent's moves. That's when you spin the chessboard around.
With all my strength, I slapped my face with both my hands. Now, my eyes were truly open.
Like Ryunosuke.
Yeah. When you don't understand anything, and you're completely cornered just like I am now, isn't that the perfect time to spin the chessboard around? While on the defensive, we can't even guess at the culprit's scheme. If we spin it around and look at it that way, just what might we see? First off, at the time the culprit committed the murders, they knew this island was being cut off by the typhoon. Therefore, they should have understood that even if they carried out the murders, they wouldn't be able to get away early the next morning. In short, the culprit had begun without securing a way to escape. Furthermore, that bastard tossed the corpses in the storehouse. Then was even kind enough to say, "Here they are," with that weird bit of graffiti. In other words, since we'd probably find the corpses sooner or later, they wanted to show them to us. If we'd all been dim and hadn't noticed the storage shed, the culprit's goal would not have been achieved, wouldn't it? If you think about it this way, that bastard of a culprit. Since this morning, they've been watching our every move with bated breath. After all, if we hadn't been so kind as to discover what happened in the storehouse, all that hard work and preparation they did last night would have just gone poof. What did the culprit want to make us feel by showing us the corpses in the storehouse? All 6 of the bodies had their faces noticeably destroyed. Was it a grudge? A warning? The defacement of the bodies had occurred after death, so it hadn't been the means by which the culprit had killed. It didn't mean anything to those who had been killed. It did have meaning to those who found the bodies. The culprit wanted to make it appear that they had been killed so brutally. Ha! After thinking this way, I really want to tell that bastard to stop taking me so lightly. Who just danced to that tune? If you're told, please be scared, you can't really just say, really? Sure thing. When someone tells the great Ushiromiya battler, the entrance is right here, I'm the kind of guy who wanted to start wanting to sneak through the window. The next thing that I actually hate that he called himself that.
I love that.
I'm so pissed
It's so
off right
great.
now. The next thing that had me concerned was the so-called magic circle on the shutter. As Maria, who had shown her knowledge of the occult rival grandfathers, had recognized, that magic circle was genuine. They must have drawn that thing in pitch black darkness, taking a lot of time and holding an umbrella in one hand. Isn't that amount of hard work and perfectionism impressive? What purpose would have all that been? What purpose would have been worth all that effort? If we were looking for a fan of the occult in this mansion, most likely all of us would naturally suspect Grandfather. Did they want us to make us think Grandfather was involved? But if that's all they wanted, they could have just drawn any sold scribble that looked like a magic circle. It wasn't like any of us amateurs would be able to tell the difference between genuine and fake. However, this magic circle was genuine, and furthermore, it had even been written in Hebrew. So this magic circle had a message that could only be understood by someone with a knowledge of the occult. A message is a form of communication. Yeah. By sending it, they were hoping for a reaction. A reaction? For some reason, we couldn't find Grandfather now. I don't know how Grandfather might have spotted the magic circle on the shutter. But did he choose to hide himself in reaction to that? No. Was it a trap to make us suspect that Grandfather had participated? You could read it either way. Damn, it's annoying. kind of reaction was the culprit hoping to get out of us by putting on this occult show? Somehow, that felt like the culprit's weak point. The letter from Beatrice that Maria had read aloud during last night's dinner sprang back into my mind. This was a freak who'd asked us to enjoy a battle of wits. Isn't that interesting? This is a battle of wits between us and the witch. Will we be sucked up by her occult game first? Or will we pull her off her fake skin first? There's a whole day until the typhoon passes. Why not enjoy ourselves?
Oh my god, Ballard wants to rave during this.
I finally noticed that the inside of the parlor had gone quiet again. Everyone had sunk into their favorite sofas, some deep in thought, some irritated, some acting depressed.
Just checking the comfort level of the sofa, man.
Oh, boy, I had to be
Maria was
honest,
once
too.
again enjoying the TV as if she'd never left it. It looked like she'd found the commercials more fun than the boring program as she yelled happily, "Ooh, ooh," again, and giggled. I stared at each person's appearance in turn. If there isn't a 19th person, the culprit must be in this room. It's George.
Suck, George.
Don't you
George
know, it
killed
was
his own
Maria all
fiancé.
along.
George killed his own fiance. So that would make George.
Actually,
really
what if the
fun.
19th is someone just disguised as a chair, but it was a servant because they're furniture?
Thinking.
Canon thinking in his head. So this is what happens to old furniture that doesn't go on eBay.
Jesus. Right now, on Natsuhi's searching the mansion with the servants, right?
Should have gone to IKEA.
Then we shouldn't say in this room. In this mansion is where this culprit has to be. After all, it's possible Aunt Natsuhi was behind this, and we still can't deny that one of the servants might be the killer. Anyone could be guilty. Still,
Even me.
Aunt Natsuhi and the rest sure are taking their time. Of course, it's not a small mansion, but isn't this taking a little too long just to walk around, checking the windows and doors? Just as I was thinking that, Aunt Natsuhi and the rest returned. Not one of them was missing, but our relief was short-lived. Everyone looked at Aunt Natsuhi in shock. The talk I had with Aunt Ava started to creep back into my mind. The possibility that the culprits had enough in numbers or weapons to kill all the 6 at once. Hello, children. Forgive me if I've startled you. I just have a big fucking gun. I brought this to be prepared for the worst.
Holy
Let's take a look at that.
That's
huh?
a Winchester 44 with
I
a sawed-off
like-
barrel.
Oh god, I love how you said that in her voice. That I just brought a big fucking gun.
Yeah, no, that's either an 1887
Look at
or...
those hands.
No, that's
Look at
definitely a
those
44.
Look at the mudgy.
With the fucking Oprah's barrel.
Look
That's
at her
illegal. That is
fucking bee
illegal as
sting
fuck.
looking motherfucking hands with her shitty ass. They're not in America.
Yeah, but even then, that's still illegal even in Japan. Like,
Do you know? Have you Googled lately?
Yeah.
Have you researched?
I know posting
Japan's-
are gun laws in Japan, and that shit's strict.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's super hard to get a gun in Japan.
Yeah, dude, that's why I got that.
Forgive me if I've startled you. I brought this to be prepared for the worst. After all, that thing in Aunt Natsuhi's hand was a rifle. At a glance, its silhouette looked a lot like a hunting gun. But it was unusually short and kind of looked like a kid-sized weapon. However, it had a weightiness to it that made it clear it was no kid's toy. That gun is Kinzo-san's, isn't it?
Yeah, Kizo would have a fucking sawed-off shotgun.
Did you know
That's
about
not a
it?
shotgun, it's a rifle.
Oh my
That's
god.
right.
Well, then that's too smart.
Yeah, she's so happy to have her fucking gun. I remembered it in Father's old collection, and I managed to find it. Whoa! Awesome. Natsuhi-san, is that thing real? Yes, it's real. It can fire live ammunition. Long ago, Father used it to scare away wild birds.
Ah, that takes me back. Where did you find that thing? No matter how much I asked him to let me touch it, he never let me lay even one finger on it. I wouldn't trust Ava with a gun.
Honestly.
Neither would I.
Oh, grandfather had one of these. I didn't know that. Huh. Shit. Long ago, grandfather was really addicted to the cowboy films.
Throw it off.
That generation really likes that kind of rifle. How the fuck did you know that? Is that a Winchester? It was a fucking 2D shitty animation of a gun. How did you know it was a Winchester?
Because there's
rifle?
only 2 types of lever guns that are from that era. There's either the Winchester 1887 shotgun or there's the Winchester 44 rifle.
I've never been more shooketh. Okay. Fuck, man. Damn. Shit. Fuck. Oh, shit.
I mean, me and
damn,
Nick knew
fuck.
that.
I thought you were just
Of course he makes a
bullshitting.
Winchester.
You guys
Yeah.
fucking read it already. That's
Yeah.
why, fuckers.
I never read it. I just know my guns.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with guns. All right. Like
That's
shit.
actually real fucking impressive.
George?
But I've never seen one that short before.
Ah, that's illegal. I remember, it's that gun. That really takes me back. That's the one Steve McQueen fired off in Wanted, Alive or Dead. What?
Wanted.
Is that a
Dead
reference to
or
something?
alive.
Probably a movie.
My dad likes.
Father sure has good taste.
Oh no.
I mean, I
Dad
don't
likes
think he got it because of the
cowboy
movie.
It is an item
Right.
the master ordered specially from America long ago. As you can see, it is a working gun, so please don't tell anyone about this, especially the police.
He was quite fond of it after he managed to acquire it. It seems the workings that ejected the cartridges were more interesting to him than shooting it, and he played around with it back in the forest all the time.
One hand like the Terminator.
Still, it's rather disturbing. Are you sure you should be dragging that out?
This is to prepare for the worst. There was probably more than one offender involved. Furthermore, those horrible people killed 6 of us, including my husband. I have a responsibility to protect everyone until tomorrow in my husband's place. As Natsuhi-san said this, she slumped down into one of the sofas and took a deep breath. She had been trying to find grandfather, as well as check the doors and windows. Since grandfather wasn't with her, she probably still didn't know where he was. I carefully checked all of the doors and windows throughout the mansion. However, we must be prepared for anything. Everyone, I think it would be best if we all remained here.
Oh, good point. If everyone's gathered here, then we can all feel more secure by keeping an eye on each other.
What do you mean by that, Eva-san?
Nothing, really. I'm just agreeing with your opinion, aren't I?
There was a stormy atmosphere between the two of them. If we think about who was the most suspicious from the inheritance problem standpoint, Aunt Eva was the obvious answer. However, there was no proof that Aunt Natsuhi was innocent. No, if you view Beatrice's letter as one of the grandfather's complicated pranks, and think of this crime as just an extension of that, there's more than enough reason to suspect even grandfather. Also, Aunt Natsuhi thought the criminal was on the outside. But Aunt Eva thought that the criminal was on the inside. In short, it was the question of whether or not a 19th person exists. That same question has been repeated endlessly since last night's dinner, with the letter from the witch who called herself Beatrice. So was the culprit among us, or not? And did the witch Beatrice exist, or not? If you assume that something as stupid as a witch can't exist, you're basically saying that one of these relatives here, who share a common bloodline, is the culprit. If that was too unpleasant, it'd be much more comfortable to simply accept the fairy tale-like character of the witch. A witch? A witch drawing bizarre magic circles and offering human sacrifices? If I could accept that rubbish, I'd be able to trust all the people in this room. Jesus. However, damn common sense got in the way.
Damn.
It kept repeating that witches don't exist. In that case, the culprit must be among us. In the middle of the seemingly endless rain, none of us could break from the silence.
Finally.
Jesus.
What time is it?
Oh,
Yes.
Jesus.
Summertime.
1 p.m.
1 p.m.
1
1 a.m. Hey, Lamau.
It is 1 p.m., right?
Yeah, you know how to read a clock.